Mankind has conquered the stars. He moves out to the endless interstellar reaches of the universe. An advanced exploration corps, a new breed of pioneer, must seek out unstable planets and destroy them.
Drive sequence begun. Hit it, Pinback.
And you are on the mission of the 21st century planet smashers. Dark Star. 20 years in space, 1 million light years from Earth. Their job is to clear a path for the colonization of space.
Back home in Malibu. I used to surf a lot, Talby. I used to be a great surfer.
Travel in an infinite universe with mind-melting excitement from beyond the stars.
Computer to bomb number 20. Return to the bomb bay immediately.
But I have received the operational signal.
Hello, Bob? Are you with me?
I wish I had more time.
Why don't you have more time?
Because I must detonate. I must detonate.
Commander Powell. Commander Powell, this is Doolittle. Can you hear me?
Man, what happened, man?
Hey.
Confirm. Power drive sequence activated. Roger, retracted. Lock all defensive systems.
Dark Star. They're not lost in space. They're loose.
Let's have some music in here, Boiler.
Sure thing.
Sunshine down, but I see only one. When I think I'm over you, I find out.
Hello, welcome to Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And today we're talking about Dark Star, released in 1974, directed by the great John Carpenter, but it is his first movie. It's a student film that he made, originally 45 minutes, and then brought up to feature length for full release. So I don't know if you have any experience with Dark Star. So what is your experience with John Carpenter, the director?
I mean, I think Big Trouble in Little China is great. Halloween's probably my favorite horror movie of all time. I think he's made a lot of great movies in the past. I mean, I'm not like a super big John Carpenter fan, but like I said, from what I've seen, I've really liked his movies.
Yeah, I'm a big John Carpenter guy. I really like his stuff. Halloween is one of my all-time favorites as well. And I do have a funny story for my introduction to him. I remember back when I was really getting into the movies. Do you remember in like the year 2000, they released like 2 Mars movies? It was like Red Planet.
Yeah,
and
Ghost of Mars.
Yeah, Ghost of Mars, which is not one of the ones that I wanted. And I told my parents, can I get Red Planet? And they came back with Ghost of Mars, which is a John Carpenter movie. And I watched this as a kid, and I was like, this sucks. So that was my introduction to, yeah, I hated it. That was my introduction to John Carpenter. But, you know, now that I have grown older, I've discovered stuff like Big Trouble in Little China and Halloween. And he really is a great director. But yeah, Dark Star. I didn't really know what to expect going into this. I just knew it was a sci-fi movie, and it was only made for $60,000, which is extremely, extremely low budget. I personally didn't love it, though. I will say that. How'd you feel about it?
So I had zero idea. I didn't know what was going to be on screen or anything like that. But when I started the movie, you can immediately tell how low budget it is just by the camera quality, the sets. But I really like this movie.
That's awesome. Okay.
No,
I'm glad you liked it because
I was so surprised because I went in right away because when I saw this, I was immediately picturing in my head a lot of this philosophical like BS type of stuff. Oh, like what is the wonders of space, and just talking about how vast and amazing it is, and just really boring stuff. But I really was so entertained by this movie. I liked it a lot.
I'm glad, and that seems to be the popular consensus of this movie. It's a very well loved movie. It's kind of a cult classic, and I will say I do love its dedication to special effects, and for the price point it was made at, I think it looks awesome. I really do. Supposedly, like the little lights for the computers were ice cube trays lit from the inside. There's an alien that shows up later that's a giant beach ball. It's very campy, and I feel like it knows it's campy. So, I mean, this isn't a time, we've talked about this before. This isn't a time before stuff was campy just because it's cool to be campy. You know, it embraced itself, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and you could tell that they are definitely working within their limitations. I mean, the spaceship just looks like they're filming like in a storage unit somewhere. It just looks really small, really compacted, so you don't know where they're filming, but it's somewhere you could tell it's pretty cheap to do. So basically, you're kind of like, I don't know. The atmosphere was great. To me, the way if I was going to describe this movie is 2001: A Space Odyssey mixed with like Seinfeld maybe, or mixed with like some type of workplace type of comedy where it's just like these people have been out in space for 20 years together, and they're just at the point where they're so done with it. Like everybody's just pissed off, and like they hate each other, and every little thing they get annoyed by.
I guess to like put in comparison, I honestly would say it's two Kubrick movies. It's 2001 and kind of Dr. Strangelove. I would pair it together, especially in its finale. It's like Dr. Strangelove. It's kind of like a mix between philosophical ideas and comedy. I will say what I didn't like about this movie, just to kind of get it out, is I don't think I really liked its length. I think there's a lot of scenes that I didn't find interesting, or something interesting wasn't going on. Like a lot of the bedroom stuff. It felt very padded out to me. It felt definitely like there was a lot of content that didn't need to be there.
Which, did you notice when you watched this during the bedroom scene specifically that there was clearly naked women on the wall, but it was blurred out?
Yeah. I guess in the original student film, it had unblurred, but I guess for theatrical, they really wanted a G rating. So they blurred it out. Yeah, that's the days. I mean, a PG rate, I think, it's PG-13 didn't exist yet. But yeah, they blurred it out. There's also cursing, and they dubbed over cursing as well. One thing, too, you can definitely tell it's from the 70s. Like, almost every guy in this movie looked like Jim Henson. Just big hair and big bushy beards. Yeah, a lot of 70s ideas. There's a guy in the control tower, I did think this was funny, who's obsessed with surfing. And he's just like, I'm hanging up here, and I just really want my surfboard. I wish I could just wax my surfboard up here. I thought that was a funny little bit that there's just this spaceman obsessed with surfing. I know. There's a lot of funny lines in there too, where especially at the beginning of the movie, where like the government sends them like a message being like, oh, hey guys, really sorry about your captain dying out there. Oh, by the way, no, we're not going to give you any money for any radiation shielding. Sorry. And just, so, I mean, that's one plot point. It's just the ship is just totally falling apart, and everything's just broken. And every time a new problem arises, they're just like, just wait till it breaks further, like until it messes up with something. Which is kind of like what this plot dives into, right? Is it is a lot like 2001, where almost the whole system goes against the crew. There's like a talking bomb that they talk to, and the bomb is threatening explosion, and they pretty much have to talk the bomb out of it, blowing everybody up. That's what brings kind of attention to the movie. It happens so late in the movie. Once again, just what I don't really like about this movie is just this climax. The plot really gets heavy in the very, very end. It takes a long time for it to happen.
But that's what I kind of like, though. It's kind of like that doldrum of like, you kind of feel like you've been on this spaceship and you can kind of like see like the BS that they're kind of experiencing, and you can tell like everybody's just over it. They're bored to death, or they're dealing with stuff like, because even the alien that's on that ship, they even said like at the beginning, like one guy thought it was cute and wanted to have like a little mascot, and now he's just like, I hate this alien so much, so much so that he shoots the alien at the end.
That cute little beach ball alien, right? How can you shoot that guy?
So when you were watching it, I didn't look up any trivia for this movie beforehand, so we'll talk about the alien. But when you're watching, I'm like it feels like Alien, and then I looked it up. The guy that's getting chased by the alien is the screenwriter for the movie Alien.
Pinhead is played by David O'Bannon. Or is it Pinback? I said Pinhead.
Not Hellraiser.
Yeah, not Hellraiser. Pinback. Yeah, he would go on to write Alien. And he worked with John Carpenter on his first film. Both creators that would go on to do great things after this movie.
He's probably my favorite character in the movie, Pinback. It's revealed that he wasn't supposed to be on this trip, and he was just a guy working in the fuel, like the jet fuel department or whatever, and he puts on like a spacesuit, and they immediately think that this guy is like, okay, you need to go on this shuttle launch, and then he's like, no, I'm not supposed to be here, and they play his video diary later in the movie, and it's revealed like, I want to get off the spaceship. And then eventually he's been on the ship for so long, he forgets like his whole identity of what he was before. And he's pinned back. And it's funny too, because all the crew members too, they're all starting to lose their identity. Because one guy goes like, hey, what's Talby's first name? He's like, I don't know. He's like, wait a minute, what's my first name?
Yeah, I love that bit. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because it's the idea that they've been on this trip so long, but they've only aged ahead 4 years. And they're starting to think like, oh, something's going on here. Something's wrong. Which I guess it's interesting. It has a lot of interesting things. Kind of like 2001. It has like, I guess, future thinking. Like, well, what would this be like? You know, like space travel. What are some things that we could talk about? What are some things that would work? Like hyperdrive is in this movie, which the special effects for that would end up being used in Star Wars.
Which there is some silly sequences like that where their whole, like they just shine like a purple light all over their bodies, and it's like, oh, they're in hyperdrive. So.
Yeah. Speaking of silly bits, there's one bit that's completely quiet that I love is when the guys are all hanging in the bedroom, and there's one guy who pulls out the goofy glasses, the ones with the spring eyes that fall out, and he puts them on. He goes up to another guy. And he's like, I'm going to make this guy laugh. And the guy doesn't laugh from his springy glasses, and he looks so devastated that he couldn't get his teammate to laugh. It's such a dumb little joke, but I did love that joke.
Yeah, and there's even like the scene too where the guy's like explaining like his origin story about like, oh yeah, I wasn't supposed to be on this flight, and and the two other guys, while this guy is talking, they're having their own side conversation in front of him. It's like, he told this story before, like 4 years ago. And
yeah.
They're just not, the guy's still going on about his story, and they're completely ignoring him too. So, and one other thing too, is there's a fourth guy that's up in the observation deck. So he's like in this little tiny dome, and he's just watching space. That's like his whole job, is to be the lookout. And the captain, or the new acting captain, is like, you should come downstairs and talk with us more. He's like, no, I feel a lot really confined down there. Even though he's like in this really tiny bubble.
There's a really cool elevator scene, the one where he's dangling from an elevator and it keeps like moving up and down. It's obviously shot on its side, but it's cool. It's a fun little special effect.
Yeah, because there's one scene where he's dangling, and he's supposed to be like dangling from it, but he kind of like rotates his back a little bit, and you can kind of see that he's lying on this board that's attached to it. So you could see like that's how they're making it look like he's dangling, even though it's clearly shot like in actuality it's just being dragged horizontally instead of it being brought down. But
I will say, like, I think this movie does get really good in the end. I think it has a great finale, because Well, it gets super odd. There's like their captain is like half dead, but his soul is alive, and they've frozen him in the ship, and they still can communicate to his soul. And they're trying to figure out how to disarm this bomb, and he's just like, well, he's not answering them. That's the funny part, is like he's totally just skipping everything. He's saying like, how are the Dodgers doing? Which I guess in that universe, the Dodgers disbanded. So.
Oh, I know. Well, like, because the guy goes down there, and they obviously have a very short time limit. They only have like 10 minutes to not have this bomb go off. And he's like, oh, how are you doing? And he's like, I don't have time for that. He's like, you never come down here just to talk. You always want something. he's annoyed at him because he came down like begging him for help, and he's like, okay, well, how do we disarm the bomb? And he's like, give me a minute, let me think about it.
As there's a timer for like 9 minutes counting down. But then eventually he comes to the conclusion like, hey, just talk to it. Just talk to the bomb. So they go outside and he has a conversation with him. But it's kind of like the classic computer, like you got to give it philosophical ideas so it breaks itself.
Mocking 2001 where like the astronauts are trying to reason with Hal on 2001. Mm-hmm. So they're having this philosophical discussion with this bomb about, well, do you actually exist? Well, how do you know what the orders you've been getting are actually real? Like, how do you know it's false data? How do you know it's correct data? Then they have to basically convince this bomb that it doesn't really exist, or like reality doesn't exist, so don't explode. But eventually the bomb does explode and it kills 2 of the crew members, and the other 2 crew members are just kind of aimlessly like floating out in space.
Yeah, and this is a movie where like the ending moment is, I don't know if you looked up any posters or anything. It's all over the posters. It's in the trailers and everything of our main character surfing in space as a country song plays. Which
John Carpenter did that song too. He didn't sing it, but he did write the music for it, I believe. So
yeah, he did. Yeah, John Carpenter started pretty early on just making music for his movies.
But it is funny though, because so they have this weird mission which they don't really explain too much, but their whole mission is exploding unstable planets. Mm-hmm. And they kind of go into this discussion of like, oh, well, what if we find intelligent life on there? And the one guy is just like, don't talk to me about that. I don't really care if we find an alien. I want to blow up planets. And then at the end of the movie, he's the last survivor because one of the other guys gets sucked out into like this collection of stars. He gets taken away, which they don't really explain that either, which is kind of like what happens to the main character in 2001.
Yes.
But he at the end of the movie, he's surfing down. He's like, okay, well, I guess I got to go to this planet. So he's surfing down. So he's becoming the intelligent life or the alien on this planet. So it kind of comes full circle that way.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think of it that way. That's actually quite interesting. Now, hearing your enthusiasm about this movie and how much you liked it, I actually think like it's kind of given me an idea of like maybe I should go back and rewatch it. Maybe I would get a little bit more out of it a second time around.
I guess for me, it was because as soon as it started, like I said, I was expecting, I immediately thought, I'm not going to like this movie. But then just as it went on, it seems so original. Even now, it seems so original to me of just like these astronauts out in space that are just like so world weary. They hate everything. They hate each other. They want to go home.
Yeah, I guess like, yeah, no, it is interesting because like space odysseys and stuff like Star Trek, Star Wars, there's always a bigger deal, right? There's always a bigger fight. There's always some sort of action. And I feel like this is definitely more like centralized and more about the people that would have to do the dumb jobs like blowing up stars and stuff like that.
It stays within its scope. They know they don't have a big budget to work with, so they know they cannot. They wanted to make a sci-fi movie, but they're like, we can't really show too much. I mean, because the outer space sequences, it's very clearly like when the astronauts are floating out there, it's just like these little figurines that are just floating in this black void, or in the spaceship, whenever it's floating, it's like a stationary spaceship. It's not moving at all. It's just like a picture of a spaceship. So it is a small budget, but that's why I like it, because they are like, we know what we have to work with. We're not going to go outside of that. We're not going to try to make the scope too big. Let's just keep it really small and try to make it that really entertaining. I recommend it a lot. I mean, there's probably going to be some people that don't like it, but it gets a high recommendation out of me.
I wasn't as big of a fan. I didn't love it. I think it's a little padded. If it's available, there was an original 45-minute cut. I want to see that one and see if I like it a lot more. But it seems like most people like it, so I say check it out if you're a fan of Carpenter, if you're a fan of sci-fi.
Yeah, if I see it on Blu-ray or anything like that, I might pick that up. Although I don't know how much better Blu-ray can make this picture quality look.
I've heard that the DVD transfers of this movie are really ugly. Like they haven't. This movie deserves a cleanup. Like somebody to go in and really make this look nice.
Which it's on streaming services, but it looks like it was ripped off of a VHS tape.
Yeah, it's a little rough. But that's okay. As long as Tubi provides it, that's what's important, right? As long as they have the ability to show these movies that don't get a lot of play.
Tubi, we thank you so much.
Uh-huh. But yeah, what are we covering next time around?
We will be doing one of my favorite movies of all time. And that is Police Story, directed by Jackie Chan from 1985. And if you want to watch it, it's available on HBO Max, Criterion Channel. Sadly, it's probably one of the first. It's not going to be on Tubi. But
oh man.
But we all know you got your HBO subscription for Dune, so when you get done watching Dune, go watch Police Story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check it out. Watch it with us. I know I'm excited.
All right, and you know what? We really love fan engagement. We're trying to hear any suggestions you guys may have. Is there a movie you want us to talk about, or is there anything that you want to tell us? You like the podcast? You don't like the podcast? Please let us know at drive-in double feature podcast at gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and just let us know you're out there watching. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what your beautiful people are thinking.
Yeah, please send us stuff. We'd love to hear it.
Yes. And we'll look forward to you next time.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye.
My body flies the galaxies. My heart longs to be there. Benson, Arizona, the same stars in the sky, but they seem so much kinder when we watch them